Hey team, Ben Lawless here. I would like to talk to you about a much maligned form of assessment which still has some great benefits to it. So let's get into it. It's multiple choice questions. So there's a few different types of assessments and we need to distinguish them so you can decide which of them is most appropriate. Multiple choice is sometimes appropriate. So here we go. We've got responses that are selected, right? So if you give students multiple choice, true or false, that's a selected response. You've given them the response, they select which one of it. If you make them match, A to D to 1 to 3, stuff like that, that's simple matching. Some other forms of matching item stuff, yada, yada, yada. You've also got all this sort of carry on. Multiple choice is just one of the selected response types of assessment, okay? Now, you've got constructed response. So I just want to make this point briefly here. For those of you who have watched any of my rubric videos, rubrics are only appropriate to assess extended response type things. So we're talking about complex performances, essays, stuff like that. So don't assess everything using a rubric. For this example, multiple choice, that is very easily assessed using the scoring key, i.e. A is the correct answer, or whatever. Right, let's get into it. MCQ. Here's a little definition for you. I'm not going to talk at the same time as this text on there. That would be idiotic and go against the principles of dual coding. Basically, the question in the official terminology is called the stem, and then you've got your answer, and then the other three that are incorrect are called the distractors. And all four of them are called alternatives. So how do you write a good stem? A stem's got to be a sentence by itself. One of the tactics that I teach students about how to answer multiple choice questions correctly is to look at the question and to try and figure out what you think the answer is before you see the options. But that doesn't work if the stem is not a full sentence. So, which of the following is not a true statement? Don't go for that. There's a better example right there. Other stuff you need to know about writing those good questions. Make sure that you're honing in on the thing that you actually want to assess. Yeah. If you include irrelevant information in the question, then students that don't know anything about that irrelevant information won't do well. What we nerds in the business call construct irrelevant variants. Also, that stem is way too long. What else have we got here? Don't ask questions that are phrased negatively. Some learners will get confused and not notice that it was a not question, and they will answer it as if it was the opposite of that. So if you're trying to find out whether they know the content as opposed to whether they're good at answering questions, then don't have negatively written questions. As mentioned, the question should be the stem should be a question or a partial question, for example. In that example there, you just want to fill in the blank line. So that's how you write a good question or good stem. How do you write good alternatives? This is the big one, okay? This is why so many multiple choice questions are written badly and why multiple choice questions have got such a bad rap, because heaps of the options are ridiculous. People will often chuck in a joke option just for a laugh. No. Every single option must be plausible, might possibly be the answer. The only strategy for getting the answer correct in a multiple choice question is that you know the answer, that you know the knowledge. Not that you can figure it out because some of the other alternatives are ridiculous. Make sure that you write both the question and the alternatives in as few words as possible. We're not assuming that you're trying to assess their knowledge. We're not trying to assess their reading ability. Obviously, every question has a little bit of reading ability in there, but we're trying to minimize that. Try not to have trick alternatives. The alternative's got to be mutually exclusive. Yep. Right, what else we got here? So make sure that your questions are all the similar type of language, about the same length, really bad, classically badly written multiple choice alternatives. One alternative will have really formal language and be like this really beautiful sentence, and the other three will just be ridiculous one-liners, and it's very easy for the student to figure out what the answer is purely by how badly written the alternatives are, as opposed to just knowing the answer. Don't ever have these ones. I cannot believe how common these are. I'm not going to get into the boring bits about why these are ridiculous, but just trust me, they are not testing what you think they're testing. In terms of how you order them, I would highly recommend just having every single one of your alternatives being alphabetical. That way, you're not making the mistake of having the most complex alternative as the A one. There are some really good benefits of multiple choice questions. Okay, I know that's heavily criticised out there, but you can get quick feedback when you do it online through Microsoft Forms or Google Forms, which now has automatic marking. It can be done immediately with no teacher workload. The questions are objective if they're well written. There's no bias. There's no inconsistency between the way different teachers would mark the same answer. It focuses hopefully on their knowledge as opposed to how good they are at writing. To think about the number of students you've got who know stuff, but they aren't able to write their answer, and so they don't do well. And obviously, it's quick to mark. If you can do a pen and paper multiple choice question, there's a really awesome app called ZipGrade, one word, ZipGrade. Check that out. It makes bubble sheets, and then you can scan the results with your phone and it'll give the answers straight away. It's awesome. Obviously, there are concerns about multiple choice questions, and we're not denying that. They're very limited in what they can measure. There's a 25% chance that you're going to get it right just by picking A every single time, which means that they have a high level of measurement noise. If they're overused in summation, so like in exams and stuff, then students can very easily just learn to recognise the correct answer as opposed to flexible, adaptive and generative knowledge. So they're good, but don't overuse them. There's a lot of reading required in multiple choice questions, so if your students don't have strong reading skills, then their lack of reading skills will get in the way of you being able to measure what they know about the topic. It can take a long time to develop. It takes a while to develop the skill of asking a good multiple choice question. If you feed these rules into ChatGPT and get it to write multiple choice questions for you, no problem. Now that we've got generative AI, writing multiple choice questions is super easy. You can take a PDF of the 5 chapters that you want multiple choice questions about, feed them all into ChatGPT or whatever, and get it to pump out 50 multiple choice questions. Sweet. And then you can take that document itself, you export that as a PDF, and then you can upload that PDF to like Microsoft Forms, and it will make the entire multiple choice quiz for you. Now, something that you might want to talk to your students about is the skill of answering multiple choice questions. So, obviously, this is a big one. A lot of the distractors are plausible answers that aren't correct, so I recommend to students that they should try and think what the answer is before they even look at the options. So, literally with your hand on a page of multiple choice questions, cover up the options, slowly work down the page, cover up the options, think what you think the answer is before you look at the options, and then take it from there. That's fairly obvious. Now, assuming that the person who's written the test is good at writing multiple choice questions, that shouldn't be a problem. Obvious. Now, this is an interesting one. We tell students to check their answers, but research suggests that roughly 3/4 of the time when people change their answer, it becomes incorrect, and that's because people might know the answer, but they've got a low confidence in their answer because they don't know why they know, and so they freak out and change their answer. But often we know the answer, we just don't know why we know, and we should go with our gut. The last piece of advice is not on there, which is if you really don't know the answer, pick the two most likely and then guess one of those two. Thank you so much.